Okay, we're switching gear a little bit today. Not and it's in the middle of the chapter again to remind everybody the chapters are sometimes a distraction. Chapter headings, they're a late addition, not from the Jewish tradition, which doesn't mean that they're bad because they're not from the Jewish tradition. It's just that it's not intrinsic to the text. And in this case, the chapter break is agreed on by most scholars because suddenly we come into a section of the book of Proverbs which has a lot of parallels in one particular Egyptian book of wisdom. Um, uh, yeah, and so what I'd like to do today is so there's no post-biblical commentary today. Maybe a little bit will come up in our conversation, but it's about looking at these parallels. This particular text, Amenanope, is from sometime between 1500 and 1075 BCE in what's known as the New Kingdom in Egypt. Not my wheelhouse. I don't know much about ancient Near Eastern history other than parallels here and there. This is a text that was discovered in the late 19th century, took until about the 1920s to be published. And already the person who published it realized that there's a lot of parallels with this particular section from the book of Proverbs. There are other wisdom books from Egypt and from Mesopotamia that will come up now, I think, in the coming chapters. And that's an interesting um, fact when it comes to trying to figure out how the book of Proverbs was edited, in what way. The sections, we've talked before, the different sections. We just finished last week this huge section of these couplets that kind of went on and on and uh, it's just kind of a one of these books you get at the checkout stand ones that have daily sayings or something of wisdom. Um, the first part of the book of Proverbs, which we did a long time ago, I'll remind you there were like dissertations, there were lectures on particular topics, and it was easier to see the editorial logic behind it. So what I've done today is broken down the sections into what are agreed, at least by Fox. Fox is the commentator I use the most on this, that are maxims. This is a section of 30 maxims. We'll talk about the number 30 in just a few minutes and why that's important here. Um, and so these maxims, these sections that I tried to do sometimes unsuccessfully in the last few months of our study to figure out maybe if sections could be called maxims or could be more than just two lines. Here I've let others do the work for me, and then I've brought the parallel uh, in from the Egyptian wisdom literature. This particular Egyptian, this fellow wrote to his son. It was like a ethical will to his son on living the good life, the noble life, but not about, it's not about monetary success. It's not about strength and power. It's about ethics. And yeah. So I was a little bit lazy. Instead of going to ancient Near Eastern texts, which is a book that I have, and using that and typing things in. I looked in the Wikipedia article. There's kind of a table that's I think it was Bunch who originally did it in the 20s, who and this is from a collection. I gave the reference here. It doesn't really matter. If you want to see a little bit more about it or see how it's set up, you can look on the Wikipedia article for Amenanope. And I don't even know if I pronounced that correctly or not. I ran into this when I was a TA for Professor Avi Horowitz in the late 80s when I was a graduate student at Hebrew University. And that's the extent of my study of Proverbs. And mostly I was grading papers, or yeah, I was checking papers for students from the Pontifical Biblical Institute from all over the world. Really, really interesting. Their level of scholarship, biblical scholarship, was not at the level that we needed for even a bachelor's degree, even university, but it would give me it's the first time I really came into contact with so many Catholics from around the world. And so that kind of brought up some memories, but I don't have that much recollection. And as you know, I haven't studied or studied the book of Proverbs until this year when we began this project. Okay, so um, yeah, why don't we begin? We'll look at it and then we'll see how we exactly what methodology we employ. I'm not sure. Hopefully our sound is better than it was. I think on Shabbat we had some trouble with sound. We'll find out in a moment when people begin to speak. Richard, you want to start the first section, the first maxim? We're 22:17 to 21.
Okay, I need to get off mute. Okay, 22. Incline your ear and listen to the words of the sages. Pay attention to my wisdom. It is good that you store them inside you, and that all of them be constantly on your lips, that you may put your trust in God. I let you know today, yes, you, indeed, I wrote down for you a threefold lore, wise counsel, to let you know truly reliable words, that you may give faithful reply to those who sent you.
Okay. So initial reactions, as we always do.
What is it? Who sent you? I'm a little confused here. Who is this? Is this person talking to his child?
It sounds like it. It sounds
And,
like this is one of those traditions that it's less from a teacher to student with many of those, but this one seems a little bit more parental.
but then at the end he said to the that you may give a faithful reply to those who sent you.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. This seems to be an excerpt from something else, and but I think it has to do with being reliable. That's what I understand from this is to be reliable.
What do you make of the sort of extra words in the sixth line, like, I'm talking to you, buddy?
Yeah, I think exactly the way you did it. That's for emphasis, to really drilling it down into making it personable. Yeah, I'm talking. Yeah, you. Yes, you. Hello. I think that's exactly it. Uh, the a question that you may ask, of course, is what's the threefold here? And we'll put that off while there's probably lots of debate on how to understand the word threefold. And there's a tradition in Jewish literature, of the Chut HaMishulash, the three-folded chord. It's a stronger chord, but we're going to see in a second that that's probably not a good translation of the text. The text is faulty. Other things before we get to that? I don't think there's anything new, right? Right? It's a repetition of many different times. We've had these kind of things, but it does serve as an introduction to a particular point here. And when it says "Halo katavti lecha," have I not, or indeed, or have I not written for you blank? Um, the you see in the Hebrew, for those that read the Hebrew, in parentheses the word shilshom, which usually means yes, a day before yesterday. Not yeah, in a 3-day unit. So we're at the third. So the first of the third is the day before yesterday. And that's how it's written, but the custom of the Masoretic, the Masoretic tradition has us reading it shalishim, which has also a little bit mysterious. It's the root of shalosh, right? It was already, I think already in the 20s when I think it was Budge, but somebody early on realized that it's not Shalishim here, it's Shloshim. It's 30, because 30 is in this parallel Egyptian text, there are 30 maxims. And so this is a reference to the fact that this is either taken directly from this Egyptian text, that's one possibility. And that's how most of, probably the majority of scholars see this. Um, and this is a key word in understanding this. You've got it, and it's easy to see how textually it went from shloshim to shilshom. Yud and Vav are very similar. Um, and uh, And so most scholars would say that and we'll talk about that as we move on to this, is this that one possibility, and this would be the Orthodox traditional possibility, is that Solomon wrote these words, and any other parallel text means that they got it from Solomon, right? So and the dating would be faulty here. That's one way of that's how in the yeshiva that's how they would say. Um, Another way, which is still possible tradition, is that both Solomon, you can still posit Solomon is the editor, the author of Proverbs, and that he's using the same source that this Egyptian source used, right? So they take from the same side, or as most scholars say, the book of Proverbs is dependent upon this particular Egyptian text or a text very, very similar to it. And the fact that there's 30 maxims in that text, 30 maxims, and Fox breaks down the next section today, and I think next week, I think we'll have next week, into 30. I didn't break our text down into, well, I did, yes. I didn't give them numbers though. But each of these boxes are maxims. The fact that our text has 30, and that 30 is not a typological number in the biblical tradition at all. There's nothing important about 30, whereas in the Egyptian tradition, 30 are the number of the judges. The judges of the court are 30, and there's a parallel number of 30 deities, or yeah, I think deities are second-class gods or something. Again, I don't know much about Egyptian culture. Rabbi Malka, if you have any information from your past studies, please chime in here at any time.
Solomon, he had Egyptian scribes in his court too. That might say why it's so similar to the sayings of Amun Oak.
Right. So one of the things, one response to that is okay, and that allows us to preserve that idea that Solomon is the author or the editor. The other thing is to say that as we have this is just a much later text than Solomon, and therefore this is a literature that's around there. This is from this school of wisdom literature. And the beautiful thing, of course, is that it's not unique to Israel. I see that as a plus. The fact that we were able to collect wisdom from the entire area, and we'll see in other sections going forward in the next few weeks from Mesopotamian literature. So all right, I feel that I haven't necessarily explained this well, but look down at, if you could, Richard, read the second paragraph after this box.
And Hopi, is that what you mean?
Yeah, from Fox. Fox is look just at that two-liner.
Yeah, look to these 30 chapters. They divert, they instruct, they are the foremost of all books. They make the ignorant wise.
Okay, so that's referring to that 30, number 30. It's chapters in the Egyptian text because they're much longer, and Proverbs are much shorter, but Fox at least finds more, he says more or less, he finds 30 of them. And it doesn't have to absolutely correspond, but the parallel is just too, it can't be coincidental, right? It can't be, it's too, in looking at the text, again, I don't know the Egyptian text at all, it's not a Semitic language, but apparently scholars have been able to show that the Hebrew text is dependent from a linguistic point of view. You can see it's dependent upon. Now, the interesting thing for me, and we're not going to do that because we'll never get through. At one point, we want to finish the book of Proverbs. The interesting thing would be to really dive deep on this and compare each of the maxims and see how they're different, and try to see how, and I've got one or two examples that I brought today, to see how the text would have changed, how the Israelite wisdom tradition changed something in the Egyptian wisdom tradition. Yes, Les.
So I just want to understand this Egyptian text a little more. I presume it would have been written in hieroglyphics because it
Correct.
was during that time,
Yeah.
and they were these texts transported outside of Egypt. I mean, I guess with Cleopatra and all that, did they get to
Yeah,
Rome?
so I don't know. I don't know that we know that. This is an Egyptian papyrus, right? And what I couldn't find, and again, I don't have those books, and and only so much is on the internet. What I didn't find, or what I didn't run into, is the provenance of that particular papyrus. You know, like Dead Sea Scrolls, I know what you know even which cave it was found in, and you know from the orthography, the letters from what you know what more or less what period it's from. Here, all I know is that this text was discovered in the late 19th century, 1880 something, and somebody had it and said he would and he was fired from his job. This guy and took him a long time doing other experts, and he finally did it. So he knew there are people that already in the late 19th century knew how to read hieroglyphics, and so
And timing then would have been what, like 1000 BCE, and then when was Solomon timing wise?
oh, okay, so that the timing that you see is sometime during the what's called the New Kingdom, which is between 1500 BCE and 1075 BCE. Now Solomon is about 1000. You know,
Okay, and I always learned
David.
somehow the Exodus was 1250 BCE. Obviously, it's just a number that stuck with me. I don't know what that
Yeah.
means.
Yeah, I don't know what that means either, especially since we don't know. We have no outside
I saw it on the internet.
Okay. Saw it on a timeline. Yeah. So, um, yeah. So I look at Egypt is an important this entire period in biblical literature. You see that Israel, land of Israel, is at the crossroads between the two major forces in our part of the world, our part in that part of the world, Egypt and Mesopotamia, and whoever it was, whether it was the ancient the Akkadians or the Akkadians or the Assyrians, the Babylonians, or the Sumerians before that, whoever it was in Mesopotamia. And I didn't give those in order, by the way. And the Persians being the end before it was conquered by Alexander, and then things changed drastically. So Cleopatra is that is after Alexander. Um, my get, in other words, I don't think it was disseminated then. I think already earlier because that's the crossroads. The land of Israel is at the crossroads, whether it's tribe of Judah or the tribe of Northern Kingdom. For those that are participating in the Micah course, we talked a little bit. Reverend Dan spoke about that last week, even with a map. Um, that literature is going. This idea that we have that we're Am Levadad Yishkon, that we're this nation by ourselves, which is in the poetry of Bilam, you know, who is blessing instead of cursing the people, that we stand by ourselves. We're in this vacuum. That's just not true. That doesn't reflect reality. So we're exposed to these things. We, being the Israelites, were exposed to these things early on, and yeah, in the 10th century, in the 10th century BCE, yeah, earlier perhaps, but you know, so it is around. You know, you can still support if you want to be traditional and say this book is from Solomon. So you know, Solomon got it from Egyptian advisors, and as Rabbi Malkus said, the relationship between Solomon and Egypt comes up a few times in not always usually not positive in the Book of Kings. Okay, so Richard, now read the section before that. Now we're reading what is the you know, which scholars assume to be the basis from which the Book of Proverbs took this section that you read first.
Give your ear and hear what I say, and apply your heart to apprehend. It is good for you to place them in your heart. Let them rest in the casket of the belly, that they may act as a peg upon your tongue.
Okay. So this kind of corresponds to the first part. It is good that you store them inside you, right? That bevit necha inside you translates bevit necha, which is literally in your stomach, in your kishkis. Like we know things in our kishkis.
Is this translation an attempt to make it sound like it might have sounded in the original language, or is it just that it was translated? I mean, because uh, uh, and apply to your heart to apprehend. I think they need to appreciate why,
Or to understand, I think.
or understand why you, and then that they may act as a peg upon your tongue.
Okay, so this is the thing. I actually changed this translation and took out the thines. And it's written like King James English,
Oh,
as was I call it's not King James English, but it reminiscent of King James Bible, as was the first Jewish Publication Society translation of the Tanakh. Also had those thines, etc. Those things. So I kind of took out those, but it wasn't about to rebuild the whole translation because I have no idea what the text means before. And again, I don't have in a perfect world, I would go to the library, I would sit with the books in front of me, and I'd look to see the scholars that I would look for Bunch. I would look for this original publication and others and see the notes in a perfect world, right? If this is what we were really.
so it's just that it's an older translation, so it's taking English as it might have been spoken 200 years ago or whatever.
I think so. But the interesting thing, let them rest in the casket of your belly. Why casket as opposed to just your belly? Maybe because that's the hieroglyphic. Maybe it's casket and belly. I don't know. I don't know enough about it. Yeah. Okay.
I just mean just to a 21st century ear, this language is just peculiar, just as the way someone, if you spoke to somebody, the way people would speak even 100 years ago would seem peculiar because they would use words we don't use anymore, or we use differently.
Yeah.
And wisdom literature in Egypt was written in a scribal language, kind of high language. Like it wasn't in the common vernacular that another Egyptian would talk to one in the street, but a bunch of Egyptian literature was written in High Egyptian, I guess we could say.
Great. Good. Thank you for that. Okay. All right. Let's try Rabbi Malka, 22 to 23.
Do not rob the wretched because they are wretched. Do not crush the poor in the gate, for God will take up their cause and despoil those who despoil them of life.
Okay. Any comments? Anything new that we haven't seen before?
It seems like you only don't rob the wretched because they're wretched, but if they're not wretched, you can rob them.
Yeah, I think maybe the second line answers that for you, right? Yeah.
You can crush the poor in the gate, but don't crush rich people in the gate. I don't know. Just don't, why the poor? Just don't crush anyone in the gate and don't rob anyone.
Okay.
Or if someone has a misfortune, don't make it worse.
True. Yeah.
Okay. And
I
what's
like that.
and what's in the Egyptian parallel?
We're robbing the poor and oppressing the afflicted.
Okay. Now,
Interesting that they don't say because God will take up their cause. That sounds characteristically Israelite.
right. So here's the challenge of what I used is that afterwards, in seeing Fox's comment on this, I learned that in the Egyptian original there is a punishment. The punishment comes from nature, though, and that's because and that's in line with Egyptian thinking. There's different gods, of course. The word God and Lord will come up later on in the Egyptian, and yeah. So, but yes, obviously the Egyptian's not going to have Adonai in it. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Okay.
But they didn't even have one of their gods.
Well, that's why the problem of using that table in Wikipedia from Osterli's translation, that's the problem. I only got what they gave me there, right? I mean, or what he gave whenever he published this. But Fox says actually this section goes on to say that nature will punish you. So that's the interesting comparison. Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh, that from our theology is one and at control of nature, and nature itself, nature as being a deity.
Karma.
Yeah, although I have a feeling that what they meant by nature was, yeah, actual things go, storms and floodings and things like that. Yeah.
But the Egyptian gods were the gods of those particular things too, right?
Yeah.
They had storm gods and rain and sun gods.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't you do another one, Malka?
Do not associate with a hothead or go about with a hot-tempered man, lest you learn their ways and find yourself ensnared.
Okay. Not again, not a unique idea that we've seen before. Have who, what is it? Shachento, like from Pirkei Avot, also, choose your neighbors, have a good neighbor. Um, and the parallel,
Associate not with a passionate man, nor approach him for conversation. Leap not to cleave to such an one, that terror carry thee not away.
I missed one of the these there. Sorry.
That which one did I miss? Leap not to
No,
cleave to.
I missed
Oh,
I missed the
oh.
thee in the bottom line instead of your, lest they carry you not away. So, Les, do these words speak to you perhaps in a particular context?
I just beware the company you keep. I don't know.
Uh,
What are you specifically thinking of something with me?
I'm thinking of you and your Facebook practices.
Oh,
Sometimes getting into conversation. Though for all those here, just Les and I have talked about it before. For all those here who use social media and are sucked into those debates, those conversations in the comments, yeah, it's sometimes best just to not just ignore it. Don't, yeah.
In Amenhotep, I like the way the Tanakh says hothead, but Amenhotep says passionate, because passionate men aren't necessarily hot-headed.
Right, except
Probably
for
not hot-headed, right?
but of course, since we don't know what the original set,
Right.
we don't know the possibilities. That would be the interesting thing to look at. So who else? What other translations do we have? Of that particular word there. Okay.
whatever it is associated with terror. I mean, it's obviously a negative.
Mm.
Hmm.
So I think the English word doesn't quite fit our current meaning of the word.
For passionate.
Or terror, for that matter, right?
Mm.
Well,
Yeah. But of course, it's also not right. Maybe we should be doing the other way around. We should be reading the Egyptian thing first, and then the
Mm.
Proverbs. But what we're studying today is Proverbs, so that's why we started. Um, okay. Diane, do you want to read 26, 27, second page? Just need you to unmute first.
Oh, okay, that works. Do not be one of those who give their hand, who stand surety for debts, lest your bed be taken from under you when you have no money to pay.
Okay.
Keep going.
No, let's just talk about
Oh,
this a little bit though. So the Hebrew al tihi b'tok'ei chaf is sticking out your hand, but this is shaking hands. So that's interesting to me, right? Shaking hands. When I often explain at a wedding, I don't know if any of you have been to a wedding that I've officiated, but when we're signing the ketubah, there's something called the kinyan sudar. Sudar is kerchief in Aramaic or in Hebrew. And a kinyan sudar means to lift it up. So perhaps you've seen that at a wedding a traditional wedding where the ketubah is read by the rabbi usually, and then the chatan, the groom, will lift this up. That's him saying, "I accept what's on this page." I do it both with both parties who are getting married under the chuppah, because it's a mutual agreement. And the signing of the ketubah traditionally was just the witnesses, not the groom. Although you do have in some cases, but in today it's always the groom, the two people getting married, and the rabbi. But from a halachic point of view, it's actually just the witnesses who have witnessed that this person who this document is speaking for, that's how that's signed. So I say to people, it's just like shaking a hand on a deal or signing a receipt, a credit card bill, or putting in your passcode or whatever it is, right? And so the interesting thing for me here is that the shaking hands. I don't know. I don't know if shaking hands is a common thing in biblical literature. I don't remember that it is, but of course I don't know that it isn't either. So, so that's one thing. Standing. So don't go ahead and give. Don't be so quick to give. Surety is when you give something for. We had another word for it. We used it when we ran into it.
Cosign alone.
Or we this as ostensibly it's co-signing, but it's
Right.
actually giving it like a house, a mortgage. What's it called?
Promissory note, collateral.
Collateral. So I think a collateral would be a collateral. So you would give it for somebody else. Don't do that, because what might happen to you is that when you don't have money, your bed will be taken, or perhaps your bed sheets. Fox says that basically it's your cloak, the thing that is dearest to you, your piece of clothing upon which you sleep or you cover yourself at night, that will be taken away from you.
Doesn't the Tanakh say though that if a person gives their cloak for a loan or a debt, that you have to give it back to them because that's the only cloak they have. So it seems like
So they
are they saying opposite things or the same
No,
thing?
it dovetails, it goes together. Don't do that because that might happen to you. Now, the fact that wherever it is in Deuteronomy, I assume that it
Mhm.
says you're not supposed, doesn't mean that people weren't doing it. In fact, that probably means that people were doing is a problem, which is why there had to be law against it, right? You know that.
Mhm.
So, and now, so to me, the interesting thing is there's no parallel in the Egyptian text to this. And Fox gives the explanation that because the custom of surety, giving surety, doesn't exist in Egyptian law at that time, in Egyptian culture. It just wasn't a thing. You don't do it. It's not done. So that to me, those are the interesting things. So we have this parallel. That's interesting. That there's a message of the fact that we, draw from different springs of wisdom all over the ancient Near East. That to me, that's
Isn't this kind of surety though when Yosef they tell the brothers to leave Benjamin there to make sure that they'll come back?
It is indeed, but again, so you're like the Talmud, right? So you're being a Talmud saying, well, how could they justify it if it says in Proverbs?
Right.
And perhaps there is a midrash like that. I don't know, but what you're excelling right now, Rabbi Malka, in intertextuality. How do we make the different parts of the 24 books
Mhm.
of the scripture, fit together? And that's what midrash does, of course, right? But we know, of course, they were written in different times, different places, and one is a narrative, and one is law, and one is wisdom literature. So I think we're bound to find things. So aside from this drawing from different cultures and the wisdom for different cultures, to me the interesting thing is, okay, so then what's different between them? How does it differ? Like we saw before, it doesn't surprise us that Yud Hey Vav Hey, that God is going to be in the picture in Book of Proverbs, and is not going to be. There's other words for Lord and God, perhaps other deities, but not Yud Hey Vav Hey. And here's something that reflects culture as well. Um, okay, and why don't you read another one? Who was, I forgot who was reading.
Oh, I was.
Yeah, go ahead. If you
Let's
could read
see.
another one.
Let me find my place. Okay. Do not remove the ancient boundary stone that your ancestors set up.
Okay, we're going to talk more in depth about this later because there's another section where it goes into far greater detail, and we'll see far more detail as far as the Egyptian parallel is concerned as well. But this also connects to a verse in Deuteronomy. We'll suspend our conversation now, or as I wrote in my notes, see below. Okay, which just means we have to get to below today. Okay, all right. Yeah, this idea. Okay, no, we'll talk more about that later. One more, would you, Diane?
See a man skilled at his work. He shall attend upon kings. He shall not attend upon the lowly.
Okay. And the parallel?
A scribe who is skillful in his business will be found worthy to be a courtier.
Okay, so if we only use the translation here, you say, well, in the Egyptian, it's a scribe, and here it feels like it's any kind of skill, any Baal Melacha. And if you go to the Hebrew, who know the Hebrew, who can read Hebrew, chazita, also another a parallel word or a synonym with ra'ita, right? You see, you behold, from like the word chazon, a vision. Chazita ish mahir b'melachto. Modern Hebrew, mahir would be conflated, and it was in medieval rabbinic commentary as well with the word maher. Same, it's just different pointing. Mahir, as Fox points out, is not quick, but is expert. And so skilled or expert. But mahir is the second half of a phrase we know from at least one case that I can think of, is Ezra HaSofer. Ezra, the scribe, he was called the Sofer Mahir. That's a particular title that one gets. So it could probably, I would say, this Mahir here means a skilled scribe as well. So then the parallel, I think, is far more exact. And it's kind of like a plug for getting a good education, right? You want to get your master's degree so you can get a better job. You want to get your doctorate so you can get a better job. Anything else?
Yeah, I kind
Okay.
of don't like this.
You don't like what? The parallels?
No, I don't like it. See a man skilled at his work, he shall attend upon the kings. He shall not attend upon the lowly. So if you're like, say you're Dr. Les, and because he's well educated, knows about medicine, he can only service the king and not some poor schnook that needs someone. It's
The king can pay more.
what's that?
The king can pay more than a
Yeah, but
local person.
what about it? What is it? The Hippocratic, Hippocrates, or whoever that dude was.
Hippocratic oath. Mhm.
Yes.
Maimonides,
What's that?
the oath of Maimonides.
Well,
That's
a few first of all, you've got yes, I understand what you're saying, and that doesn't our outlook, our life outlook is we try to be a little bit more fair about things. Yet we see it everywhere around us. Um,
So is this commenting on the way the world is, or as opposed to the way it should be?
I
Maybe
think
they're only talking about scribes. And in those days, a scribe would be only working for a king or someone important. The scribes weren't really of use to average people. So maybe it really is scribes they're talking about.
yeah. I
Well,
still think there's different levels between the royal palace and other wealthy people. Somebody was about to say something though. Sorry.
oh, I was just looking at that word in the Hebrew, the hashukim. It sounds like darkness, not lowly.
I think it's
Is that like, is there a connotation in the Hebrew that's not in lowly?
yeah. I don't
Because
know.
that would make it make more sense, kind of.
Yeah. Hashuchim.
I
Yeah,
should.
it could be an idiom for lowly, but go ahead. So somebody else was going to say something else, and I'll quickly try to check that. Was somebody else was about to say something?
No, maybe the ones in darkness are the lowly. Maybe that.
Yes, I think that's I think to me, I think that's the let's see, the note is meaning of Hebrew uncertain in the JPS translation. And so Ibn Ezra Chashuchim Aniyim, poor people.
Mm.
Oh, and it's from the Targum Yonatan, the Aramaic translation has Dalut. So um, I think because the connection, semantics connection between being poor and having a dark kind of existence, I think. But what else? What is there another Dalit? Is there another possibility that you might be thinking of with Chashuchim?
Well, I'm just thinking it would make more sense why a man skilled at his work wouldn't want to, I mean, if darkness seems connected with, like bad, like darkness, spiritual darkness. or something.
or lack
As
of,
opposed to, he wouldn't want to attend on someone who's not wealthy or not a king.
or someone who's unenlightened. Chashuch, unenlightened.
Ashuk.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Ashuk.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
So again, so in a regular, so Dalit, this is your second time with it. Dalit is Diane's Hebrew name, and I know she likes to hear it, so I like to say it.
Yeah.
But in because the focus today has been on the Egyptian parallel, I didn't spend the time. This would have been a wonderful thing to go in deep and try to look for, perhaps to see what kind of rabbinic commentaries there are, other than what I quickly looked at right now. And then, so back to the question though, Richard, is it prescriptive or descriptive? I see it as a parent, and I think this is framed as a parent giving wisdom to their child. You want your child to do well financially. And I hear what you say. You want them to serve other people, and there are other parts of this where you do take care. We'll see with the boundaries, for instance, you do take care of the people who are not as fortunate as you are, but you want them to get a good job. It's like, think of. I know that there, you know, well, there are some parents here and some not, and many here who are not parents, but it's nothing that we ever did with our children. But certainly, I think yeah, I think the generation of my parents were doing that with myself, and my parents a little bit less so, but many of my peers. What college do you go to? What high school do you go to? Remember that movie? What nursery school do you go to? There was a movie, I think it was with Diane Keaton, maybe. Yeah. Okay. A blessed memory. Okay. Anything else in this section? Okay. So, Rita Clarity, would you like to read today? If you could unmute first. Sorry.
I did it.
There you go. Okay. And the fact that California is right above your ear, hanging above your ear, reminding everybody who lives here in California, I know not everybody does, to vote. Won't tell you how to vote, but I think you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it's important to vote. And I think we all got our ballots, and ours are ready to be put in the mailbox today. And
Yeah, we mailed ours.
yeah.
Same.
Okay, great. So go ahead. 1 to 23, 1 to 3.
When you sit down to dine with a ruler, consider well who is before you. Trust a knife into your gullet. If you have a large appetite, do not crave the dainties, for they are counterfeit food.
Yikes.
Wow.
What?
So what do we get out of this?
I have to think about that. I think you need to be very careful how you present yourself when you're with other people. And if you're thinking about a parent teaching your children, I would say it's teaching them to be polite.
Yeah, I think
I,
that
I don't see that at all.
I don't either. Yeah.
really,
Yes.
Well-
What I think here is a very, I really like this section, my favorite section. Because
Why?
why? Because this says to me that when you go to a ruler or anybody in power, be very careful, because power corrupts, and you never know with a person in power if they're a corrupt person or not. So you need to be cautious, and just don't accept what they say. This reminds me of when I was at Canon Pictures. I was had a low level job, but I was like sorting through receipts and stuff, and I noticed that the owner of the company put all his personal bills in the box where the bills would be paid. So he let the company pay for it. And I asked the accounting department, do we send him a 1099 on this? Because this is now income to him. And they all told me to shut up.
Mm.
So in other words, he was letting the company pay for his personal expenses. So so that was kind of a low level minor corruption. But in my career, I've noticed that people that have that are in positions of even modest power, which this is an example of, are prone to take advantage of it. And now we have like some major examples of this in our culture.
Mhm.
So I think that's what this is saying is be very careful of the powerful because they may not be corrupt, but they may be corrupt. You need to figure it out.
So they told you to put a knife to your throat? Is that? I'm joking, but Richard.
No, but I
So,
think that part of it is saying is that don't develop that kind of appetite yourself.
yeah,
It's saying
so
better to
interesting.
put a knife in your gullet than for you to become like that person.
Right. So it's a metaphor. The food here is a metaphor.
Right.
Whereas I think that with Rita Claire's explanation, the food was actually food. It's a symbol for other things in life, but those of us that raised children and we were at other people's tables, especially important people's tables, there's people we were a little bit more mindful of asking them, not only to be polite, but also to not think about the kiddush table in shul. The rabbi and the rabbi's kids with the kiddush. Okay, never mind. We won't get into personal issues of.
I think it depends on how you relate to in your life. Now with Richard, he was out in the world with a job of importance and dealing with all kinds of people. But I, being a parent, my life was totally different, so I view it differently.
That's a good point.
Good.
So I don't understand the metaphor, at least in the Hebrew version or whatever. When I read the Egyptian one, it makes sense, but the metaphor of, he's warning people, but he says thrust the knife into your gullet. I didn't quite. Is he saying don't scarf down your food in front of a ruler, or do
So I
scarf it
think
down?
the first two and the last two lines could be "Don't scarf down your food," perhaps. But I think that the "V'samta sakin loach," I think that's an idiomatic phrase for control yourself. Yeah, it's not you're not supposed to actually stick a knife in your throat, right, or in your balach, the place where you swallow. Um,
And in
uh,
the dainties, they're referring to fine food rather than just small.
Appetizers.
Here, the word in Hebrew is from the root tam, matamot, from
Right.
tasty foods. Yeah, tasty foods. There's an interesting verb here, which isn't as unique, as rare as I thought it was when I first saw this. But the in Hebrew, for those that follow, ki teshev lilchom, from the word lechem.
Mhm.
Lechem, food to eat. Lilchom. It makes perfect sense, right? But I don't remember seeing that. I did look it up in BDB and I saw that there are 4 or 5 or 6 other places in the Hebrew Bible that have it. So lilchom, I like that. And then there's to this from the Hebrew point of view, this is back to the kind of delineation of units that you've seen me do in the past, where there's words that so the theme here is food, yet I think it's being used poetically, so it can be a symbol for something else. But the section starts with ki teshev lilchom and ends with v'hu lechem ksavim, lechem and lilchom. Yeah. Okay. So then the parallel, Rita Claire, the parallel.
Eat not bread in the presence of a ruler, and launch not forward with your mouth before a governor. When you are replenished with that to which you have no right, it is only a delight to your spittle. Look upon the dish that is before you, and let that alone supply thy need.
Here it feels a little bit more about food than about power. Would you agree?
No, there I look at it as it's not to look upon things that you think are going to benefit you in a way that you have not earned that benefit.
Okay, because you are with the person in power. I got that. Yeah.
Huh.
Okay. So, all
Well, the
right.
next one might go hand in hand.
Well, go ahead. Do the next one, Rita Claire.
Not toil to gain wealth. Have the sense to desist. You see it when it is gone. It grows wings and flies away, like an eagle heavenward.
Okay, how do you understand this?
That's
Well,
not advice a parent gives their kid.
that there are, unfortunately, in this world, it seems like we think of being wealthy as being important, and it's it's sad to me that one has to feel that way, because you can be so important in so many other ways that are more meaningful than money.
Okay. Others?
Maybe do not toil to gain wealth. When I first read that line alone, I just thought, don't choose a profession just because of the money.
Mhm.
Even if it is to be a skilled scribe.
Mm.
Yeah. So go ahead, read the parallel, and then I'll make a comment about one of the words here. Go ahead.
Toil not after riches. If stolen goods are brought to you, they should not remain with you overnight. They have made themselves wings like geese and have flown into the heavens.
Is this the same? What are the differences?
You could be tempted, and don't be tempted.
And there's no sense in the hero of stolen goods.
Right.
Mhm.
So Fox sees this as a skilled poetic reinterpretation, and he sees it in two ways. One is that it's not the stolen goods are covered in other places, but and that's in the Egyptian, but in as far as Proverbs is concerned, it is about that goal of attaining wealth and the problem, the challenge that is. So it just sticks with that and instead drills down on that wealth, which you think is a goal. And then I would use the term easy come, easy go. Well, not easy come, easy go, but that's not a good term here. But it's, you can lose your pants. People who may, I think of the stock market here, for instance, right?
Bitcoins.
Bitcoin, I don't know because so far it seems like they're doing pretty well. But yes, we can only hope that that it won't go well, right?
Or you can't
Um,
lose money in the stock market if you don't put money in the stock market, or you can't lose wealth you don't have.
right.
Mm.
Yeah. So then the only thing,
Because rich people think about wealth all the time, whereas and not losing it. Whereas I don't know. Maybe, never mind.
I think we know, but Les, I think we both know people who are not wealthy, who struggle, who think about wealth a lot as well, and get, the schemes and yeah. Oh, the amount of emails I get, folks, that I get because I'm the rabbi of a small congregation. People don't know that it's a small congregation. Um, yeah, it just seems to be, yeah. It's remember that time, maybe it's still, but everybody was a coach, a life coach. It's kind of without necessarily having serious academic training. Uh, Other pyramid schemes, yeah.
It reminds me of what people say to me when they hear that I have 8 children. Oh, how wealthy you are. So it depends on where you put your wealth
Right.
and how you view it.
Okay, so the last thing I just want to mention here is the bird that's mentioned in the Egyptian is a goose, are geese, and maybe that's because that's what around. Maybe they don't have eagles in Egypt. That could be it. But Fox points out that the eagle is just a faster going up and going down. It's the image is a stronger, more powerful image of how it can come. The wealth can come to you, and it can leave just as easily. Yeah.
And also, since they said heavenward in Mishle, eagles can really soar and
Mhm.
geese can't.
Right. Well, we don't have too many geese out here in Palm Springs, unlike Baltimore, you know.
Geese and deer.
We have cranes, though.
Hmm.
Okay. Oh boy. So please indulge and let's try to get through the rest of this. Charles, you want to read 23:6 to 8?
I'm sorry, were you asking me, Rabbi?
Yeah, yes, if you'd like to
I'm
read
sorry.
23:6 to 8. Thank you.
Sure. Do not toil to gain wealth. Have the sense to desist. You
No,
see
we're
it?
we're in the next section. Next section on the next page.
I'm very sorry.
No
My
problem.
phone rang at the time you rang me. Okay, very sorry. Do not eat of a miser's food. Do not crave for his dainties. He is like one keeping accounts. Eat and drink, he says to you, but he does not really mean it. The morsel you eat, you will vomit. You will waste your courteous words.
Okay. All right, this is connected in many ways to what came previously with the same keyword lechem here. Al tilcham et lechem ra'ayin. Ra'ayin, bad eye, is the opposite of somebody who is generous, a good of eye. Tov ayin. Um, I think maybe what we'll do is we'll keep this little bit for next week. I want to reserve the right to do something because I see there's a parallel in Ben Sirah, and maybe the topic will be about food issues as well. Maybe we'll go there and we'll get a little bit more out of this, and there's no parallel here. Eileen, 23:9.
Do not speak of a dullard who will disdain your sensible words.
The parallel.
Empty not your inmost soul to everyone, nor spoil thereby your influence.
To which Fox says this is not a parallel. So
Right,
so sometimes people in the earlier generations of this kind of thing, when people would find uh, material that was similar to biblical literature, and then there would be a an overabundance of lines drawn, and he takes a step back and says there's really nothing in the Egyptian parallel to this. Um, uh, but let's end with this with 23:10 to 11, and Dan, if you would do us the honors to, and we'll yeah, go ahead.
Do not remove ancient boundary stones. Do not encroach upon the field of orphans, for they have a mighty Redeemer who will surely take up their cause with you.
Okay, and skip the first parallel and go to Fox's. This is a longer section. This is not an excerpt the way it was the Wikipedia article gave the table. This is from a longer section of one of the chapters of the 30 chapters in the Egyptian original. Go ahead.
Do not displace a stone on the boundary of the fields, nor move the position of the measuring cord. Do not be greedy for even a cubit of a field. Do not encroach on the boundary of the widow. The trodden furrow shortens the lifetime of him who cheats in the fields. Should he ensnare something by false oaths, he will be caught by the powers of the moon. Know what he who does this on earth is a foe of the weak. He is an enemy who is cast down in his body. This crime takes life from him who does it. His house is an enemy of the town. His barns will be demolished, his property taken away from his children, his belongings given to another. Beware of encroaching on the boundaries of the fields, lest a terror take you away. One pleases God by the powers of the Lord Thoth in determining the boundaries of the fields. Desire that your body be well, and beware of all Lord, sun god, the king, etc. Do not traverse the furrow of another. It is good for you to be kept well by them. Plow in the fields, and you will find what you need and get food from your own threshing floor. Better is the bushel that God gives you than 5,000 gained by force. They do not last in the storehouse of barn. They make no food for the jar. Their time in the granary is but a moment. When day dawns, they sing down. Better is poverty than in the hand of the God than wealth in the storehouse. Better is simple bread when the heart is pleasant than wealth with vexation.
Okay, so just to quickly look some of the differences, the obvious differences.
What I hear is stay in your own lane.
So great detail, right? The biblical text was much shorter, and we get the thing about boundary stones and encroaching the field of orphans. Somebody dies, the generational knowledge of where exactly does the field end. We can understand people would take advantage of orphans or widows, but of course, who will protect them in the biblical text?
Hashem.
Go'alam, right? The Go'alam. And Go'alam could also mean, by the way, the person looking out for them, their relative. Um, connected to the mitzvah, the Gulat HaSadeh, the redemption of the field by the closest relative, similar to what happens in the book of Ruth. But I think in light of the fact that there's a parallel, I think seeing Go'alam as a proper noun for God, Redeemer, is a good idea. And of course, who plays that part in the Egyptian?
Various gods.
Ra.
Yeah, the moon, the All Lord, who's the sun god, and others. Yeah, yeah,
And Ra.
yeah. Now, the great detail, and this is, I think, to me, this is the most interesting part. Oh, and this is also connected to Deuteronomy 19, where the Hasagat Gvul, when you go into somebody else's property, which is later explained to be moving into other people's business as well. Giving in the Talmud discussions about who can give a halachic decision in what area. Who's the rabbi? Can a lower rabbi give a halachic decision when in the same town or village of somebody else? That's also known as hasagat gvul. But in the Egyptian, it's very, very tangible. And the reason for that is in Egyptian law and culture, after the Nile floods every year, boundaries had to be marked anew. And look at the first part, do not displace a stone in the boundary stone, nor move the position of the measuring cord. The measuring cord is how there were people, their jobs were, these judges, these officials, they would go with a measuring cord because they had the records of where land began, land ended, and because it was washed away. So therefore it goes into great detail here, and the possibilities of those less fortunate, those less powerful being taken advantage of because of this reality of the flooding of the Nile every year, I think every year, which is not the case in Israel. So to me, this is the most interesting part of these comparisons is to see how the early and one can see which is the earlier and which is the later text. That's kind of the main point here. If we had to say what's the relation between the two texts, you could still say they both take from a common source, but it feels here that the earlier source was a long one into detail connected to a certain geographical reality, as opposed to the way it was repackaged in the book of Proverbs.
I had professors in yeshiva that used to use this text, don't move the boundary stone, to talk about plagiarism before an exam.
And Hasagat Gvul is is the modern Hebrew word when it comes to intellectual property.
Mhm.
Yeah, Hasagat, yeah, exactly. Okay.
So just a quick question. It talks about the powers of the moon, and then it talks about one pleases God by the powers of the Lord thought. What is that?
Don't know.
Thought is a Egyptian god.
Yeah, no,
Thoth.
yeah. Thought is an Egyptian god, but I don't know the relationship between the moon, the different gods, whatever.
If
Ra
there's the
was
powers of the
Ra
moon,
was
there's
the
God. Like who is God they're referring to, and the
Yeah.
Lord thought.
Yeah, so I think the note that I saw on this is that sometimes, just like we say Elohim and biblical text, the at least in after the editing of the Torah, when we say Elohim, we mean the same as Adonai, Yud He Vav He. So I think in their text also Elohim, depending on the context, is talking about a particular God, and everybody understood what it was, and it's just translated God. It's a generic term. But I just don't know enough about it. So I would imagine if you were to, to Google, ancient Egyptian gods from the beginning of the end of the 2nd century BCE, then you'd get some sort of a glossary of terms or something.
I'm gonna do that. Okay, thanks.
Hall of Fame, baseball cards.
And the king was considered a god. The pharaoh was
Yeah.
considered a god too.
Right. Yeah, the kings. Yes, absolutely. Okay, everybody. So I know this was a different way, and well, let me read going forward. We'll see how we do this. I may take some time next week to talk about eating habits in ancient Israelite wisdom as well. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for being
Thank
here,
you.
everybody. Bye-bye. Be well.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madalena.